You ever notice how a single moment can turn an ordinary morning upside down? Make it feel like you just witnessed something too honest, too raw to be explained later? That's how it started for me. On one of those damp, bone-cold Detroit mornings, the kind where the sky hangs low and even the snow seems tired. I was standing at my usual post behind the register at Maple and Company, half listening to the hum of refrigerators, watching puddles of gray slush swirl around the entryway. At 10:30, the store's still waking up, you know? It's quiet, just a few folks shuffling in, the bell over the door croaking out a greeting, everyone wrapped tight in their own thoughts that I was 18 back then. But life had a way of making me feel older, my mind always a few blocks ahead, thinking about bills, counting out hours until I could get back to my Grandma Lorraine's apartment where the thermostat never broke 65. She'd raised me since my mom passed, taught me what it meant to step up without asking, how kindness wasn't a performance but a quiet habit. So I guess you could say I noticed things, especially the ones most people miss. This morning, I just finished ringing up a young mom and was waiting on the next customer, Margaret. You could tell she'd seen better days, her coat a size too big, a blue knit cap barely clinging to wisps of white hair. She smelled of lavender and library books. She moved slow, careful, like every step cost her something. She set her basket down and started unloading. Bread, milk, a pat of butter, and that lone can of chicken noodle soup. Nothing extra, all essentials, placed with the care of someone counting every cent. I did the usual, scanning each item, making small talk. "Staying warm out there, ma'am?" She smiled, polite, but tired, then reached into her purse and pulled out a faded cloth pouch, the kind you only see in old movies. Coins tumbled out, quarters, nickels, dimes, 3 dog-eared singles, all lined up like soldiers. Her hands shook a little as she counted, under her breath, brow furrowed in concentration. I watched her struggle, thinking about the jar of change on our kitchen counter back home. How sometimes you hope there's enough in there to cover a bag of rice or a bus ride. That Margaret's count came up short. 85 cents to be exact. She said it so quietly, you could tell it hurt to admit. Before I could speak, the guy behind her started tapping his thick fingers on the counter. Tap, tap, tap. Impatience leaking out like steam from a kettle. Other customers shifted, some pretending not to notice, others not even bothering to hide their irritation. Margaret's shoulders curled inward. She glanced at the soup and mumbled, "Maybe we can put this one back." Right then, it was like the room itself held its breath. I could see how much she wanted that can of soup, maybe more than anything else she'd bought, and I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes, waiting for me to hurry this up, keep their morning smooth. But something inside me rebelled at that. The same instinct that made my grandma drop a few quarters in a stranger's hand or save the biggest piece of chicken for me, even when she was hungry. So, before I had a chance to think myself out of it, I pulled my wallet from my apron, slipped $1 onto the counter, and scanned the soup, saying, "This one's on me, ma'am. Consider it a gift." She blinked, flustered, tried to protest, but I just gave her a smile, the kind that says, "Don't worry about it. Let's just keep this moving." Then, out of nowhere, I remembered her. "Margaret, you used to read to us at the library, didn't you?" Sat by the big window, telling mystery stories. Her eyes widened, the years peeling back for a second. "Today, it's my turn to give back." She didn't have words, just that watery, grateful look people get when someone sees them, really sees them. You know what happened next? The woman behind Margaret, who'd been quiet this whole time, stepped up and says, "I'll pay for the next 2 people." Then a guy over in the next lane, a bear of a man with a salt and pepper beard, calls out, "Put me down for 5." And suddenly, it was like the whole store shook off the morning cold. Folks pulling out wallets, offering to pay for strangers. A young dude in a beanie waved his phone, asking if we took Venmo. Even the nurse way down the line piped up, "I'll cover the person ahead of me." Laughter broke out, the tension dissolved. It was beautiful, electric. One of those moments that makes you wonder why we don't do this all the time. It spread quick. People started smiling, chatting, reaching across carts to shake hands. There was no announcement, no sign on the door, just a shared understanding that kindness, for once, was the rule and not the exception. Even the impatient guy in the parka. He stopped tapping, hands in pockets, smiling at the scene. I caught Margaret watching, clutching her bag, cheeks red with surprise and something close to joy. The real payment wasn't in dollars and coins anymore. It was in the warmth that filled the aisles. Someone even filmed it, quietly, holding up a phone to capture the ripple as it moved. By dinner that night, the clip was already bouncing around our community Facebook group. Next morning, folks at the bakery, at the gas station, were talking about the soup line miracle. The local news picked it up, ran the story with me in the background, scanning groceries like any other day. My grandma got phone calls from friends she hadn't heard from in years, everyone wanting to say thank you or share their own stories about small kindnesses. Margaret started getting mail, cards from strangers, little grocery store gift cards, even a letter from a family in Ohio promising prayers. She called the store just to thank my manager for hiring such a good-hearted young man. I tried to dodge the attention, kept my head down, said no thanks to radio interviews. My grandma always said, if you can help, help right away. That's all there is to it. That's all I ever said, but the story didn't die. The following Thursday, Mr. Collins, my manager, handed me an envelope, no return address. Inside was a letter in careful handwriting. You don't know who you helped that day. My mother is Margaret. She spent her life giving to others. She's rarely been on the receiving end. Last week, she told me she'd never felt so embarrassed until you reminded her she mattered. Folded inside was a crisp $100 gift card and an offer. If I ever wanted to go to college, they'd help. I just stood there, holding that letter, feeling the world shrink down to that small, bright moment. The best part? It didn't end there. A retired bus driver started something called 85 cents of kindness. Carry spare change. Use it if you see someone struggling. Kids at school started talking about it. At the store, you'd spot someone quietly covering the next person's bill. No fanfare, no drama, just a nod, a smile. And the world felt lighter for a second. One afternoon, Margaret came back with Lorraine. They'd become friends. Tea at our apartment, swapping stories, comparing the ripeness of tomatoes at the market. It felt natural, like the three of us were meant to orbit each other, connected by that single, silent act of help at the checkout. Over the weeks, the story kept growing, like a thread stitching neighbors together, making everyone stand a little closer. Sometimes I look around, see someone counting coins at my register, and before I can even move, the person behind them steps up with a quarter, a dollar, whatever's needed. And I just smile, because now the kindness isn't mine alone. It's part of the neighborhood, part of Detroit, passed along like a favorite recipe to Oh, let me ask you. Next time you're in line, will you stand still, or will you be the reason someone remembers that day for the rest of their life? If this story made you feel something, hit like, hit subscribe, and let's keep the conversation going. What does justice mean to you? When is a community truly whole? Drop your thoughts below. Can't wait to hear what you've seen, what you believe, and who you've become along the way.